So if you've worked with CLI programs, you've probably worked with command line arguments and flags. So command line arguments are passed in to the main function in C through argc and argv. So argc has the number of arguments, and argv has an array of strings. And we can take a look at this by printing this thing out. So if we look at while argc, we can print each one of these arguments and get them out of there. So let's do gcc main.c, and let's create a program that will do this. Let's have an integer 1, 2, 3, 4, a floating point 4, 1, 2, 3, a string hello there. And that's it for now. That's good. So we can print all of these things out. Notice the first argument that is actually passed is the name of the program itself. And of course, everything else comes along exactly as it is. So what happens if we want to actually process the flags? Well, there's an option to do this using standard libraries called getopt. So if we look at the man page for getopt, then it shows up here, and there's all kinds of documentation for it. And at the bottom here, we actually see they give us some examples of using getopt. Getopt uses the unistandard library. And you can see the getopt function is used here where you pass argc and argv. You get an option out, which the option is the character that you want to switch on. And you give it essentially a string with all the possible characters that you could have. Now, in between those characters, you could possibly have 1 or 2 colons. There's also a semicolon option. And this is actually quite complicated to use, and it's very easy to misuse. In fact, if you use it normally like you have here, then you cannot have any spaces between your flag and your argument to the flag. So you would have to remove this space here. And normally you just want people to be able to type spaces. So let's create our own way of looking at this. So if we want to do this, the first thing that we're going to have to do is skip the name of the program itself. So what we're going to do for that is we're just going to say argc decrement and argv increment. And that gives us a way to skip these things over. So if we compile this, then we should be able to run our program, and now we start at I instead of at our program name. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to check to see if the argument that we're looking at is a flag or not. And the way we're going to be able to tell is to look at this dash. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to say if argv 0 and the first character of it is not a dash, then we know that that's something that we want to skip, that we're done looking at flags. So we're going to break for that. So that would allow us to not deal with anything that's not flags. So if we compile, in fact, let me take a look at this. So argv, there we go. Let's compile again. So argv, let's add some not a flag, right? So if we print this out, actually what we need is, let's see, argc, if argv 0, 0 does not equal a dash, we break. There's something that we're doing incorrectly here. Oh, so the thing that we're doing incorrectly is we have this argument, which is the flag. And then, of course, the next thing after it is the number or whatever else that we're doing. Now, if we just go around the loop, obviously that will not be a dash. So we have to have 2 of these. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll have 2 of them in our case. And now we should be able to print out all of them, right? So this gives us everything that all the flags that we have. And of course, we're skipping the not a flag, right? Or we're just not processing that. So now that we can look at all of our flags, let's look at actually dealing with the flags. We want to parse them. And so that means that we want to have, say, an integer. We want to have a float value, which will be 0.0. We'll have a string, which will start out as null, and then perhaps a bool value b, which starts out as false. And then let's actually process this, because we know that if we pass this condition that we start with a flag. So we're going to switch on the flag that we're going to have here. And so we're going to start with argv, and it's going to be obviously the first one that we have. And we're going to switch on the second character. And then we can create a switch statement, say case I for an integer, then f for float, case s for a string, and case b for bool. And of course, in between all of these, we want breaks. So we'll put some breaks in there, and that allows us to look through everything that we have. Now, the thing that we have to think about here is we're not going to print these things out anymore. So, but we are going to decrement our C counters. But what we want to do is we want to be able to consume these things, right? We want to say, hey, if I have an integer, I want to get the argument for that, because currently our argv0 is going to be our flag, right? It'll be -i or -f or something like this. And so we're looking at that. And what we want to be able to do is to be able to take this case and consume it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a little bit of macro magic, and we're going to have something called get arg, right? And what that's going to do, it's going to call a function called get arg underscore, and we're going to get the address of argc and also the address of argv. And we're just going to return that value. And that function is actually going to just return a string for us. And then we can parse that string however we wish. And so we're going to say get arg, and we'll say int star, we'll give it just say a number or something like this. And then we'll say char star a for args. And then we're going to have actually a pointer to an array of strings is actually what we want. And what we're going to do here is we want, when we get an argument, in order to consume it, we want to decrement the argc value, and then we want to increment the argv value, and then return that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to decrement the argc value, which is just a number that's going to be passed in. And then to make things a little bit easier for us to understand, we're going to have this be the value of this. In fact, this is going to be a, what is this? It's going to be an array of strings, essentially. So this will actually get us an array of strings. And then what we're going to do is we're going to increment that array of strings. And then we're going to return, then what we're going to do is we're going to say that A, it needs to be this AA, of course. And then we're going to return that first string that we get from, actually from AA, right? So that is essentially how we're going to consume these arguments. So just to recap what we did, we took argc, remember argc comes here as n, and we decrement it. And so since we're passing a pointer to it, that actually changes the value of argc. And then argv, we want to increment argv and return that first string from it. So that will allow us to consume argv and get the value. So let's go ahead and use this, and it will make more sense as we use it. So n is going to be an a to I, which will convert an ASCII string into an integer, and we're going to say get arg. And that allows us to use that. We'll say f is a to f, get arg. The s is going to just be get arg. And then Booleans, we're not going to consume anything at all. We're just going to say that B is true if someone passes us the B flag. So that should allow us to get everything that we need from this. Now, at the very end, we're going to want to print all of this out. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to say printf in is this integer value. And we'll do a few more of these. We'll say, this actually, can I just replace here? Can I replace? Oh, I don't want to replace in. Let's just do this. So this will be f. That'll be a floating point value, and we'll replace f with this. This will be s, which will be s and s. And then the Boolean value, we're going to return a string. And to make it readable to us, we're going to check the Boolean value. If it's true, we'll return true. Otherwise, we'll return false. And that is essentially that. So let's go ahead over here and compile this. And if we run this, we get actually our parsed values, right? So n is 1, 2, 3, 4. Our floating point value is good. Our string value is good. And we never gave a Boolean flag. But if we do give a Boolean flag, if we go in here after one of our arguments and say Boolean, then we get a Boolean which is true. So this works exactly as we want it to. Now, this only works for our particular program. What if we want to use this kind of pattern in all of our C programs, right? Anytime that we want to parse flags. Well, we can turn this into a macro. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go and take this. We'll copy this and we will paste it in. So we'll say define, we'll say arg begin, and let's go here. We'll paste this here, and we'll just go ahead and start letting this go exactly as it is. We're going to remove all of these spaces because we don't have to worry about that here. So for a macro, we just kind of we don't even need all those spaces. And then here, we're going to have a switch statement. And that's actually going to be where we pass, actually where we don't care about this, right? This is what the user is going to pass to us. So we don't care about any of that. And so then, everything else will be the end of the arg. So we'll say arg end, and this will be all of the things that we need at the end of the argument. And now we have exactly what we need. We've kind of templated this out to be a macro. So let's, now we could be making a mistake here. So what I'll do is I'll just comment this out just in case we make a mistake. And let's use our macro. So we're going to say arg begin, and that will give us the beginning of our macro. And we'll just use our macro like this, arg end. And that's exactly what we need to essentially template everything that we have. So then we can pass in all of our cases that we need. So if we do this, we can get all of our cases. And we'll pass them in here, and we'll just format them a little bit. And that should work exactly the same as all the rest of the code that we had before. So let's try this. Let's compile. We'll run the program, and it looks like it actually works. What happens if I turn off this B flag, right? We now get false. What happens if I change the integer flag, right? Give it some other number. That works. Okay. So the interesting thing about this is that we can get rid of all of the code that we wrote before because now we've templated it out. The other thing that we can do now is we can take this and put it in a header file. So that way we can reuse it for all of our programs. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's copy main.c into short flags.h. Let's open up short flags. We don't need any of this. And we don't need any of this in our short flags. Open up our main program, and we're going to include short flags. in our program. And now we don't need any of this here, right? So we can bring this back. So now if we recompile our program, gcc main.c, and run our program, we still get our awesome output. And of course, if we add the B flag back in, we get true, and everything works exactly as we had. And so notice that everything is just kind of simplified and hidden behind this nice little thing, this nice little interface of arg begin and arg end. And then of course, we use get arg to consume an arg that we want to consume. The other thing that we want to do is, what if we have normal arguments, right? Positional arguments that come after. Notice that we have not a flag, and we haven't dealt with it yet. Well, what we can do is, let's take a look. Let's print out our argc and see what it is. Because this macro should be decrementing argc, and it should also be incrementing the argv. So argc and argv should line up perfectly after we've consumed all of our arguments. So actually, let's go over here and compile. And then if we run this, we can see that there is one argument after. And this is, of course, our not a flag. If we add something else, like if we add something else at the end, like say, just some letters or whatever, we can see now that there's two arguments after. So let's go ahead and print those out. So we'll do for int I equals 0, I less than argc, I plus plus. Then we can print our arguments, right? So normal arg is just a string, and we'll print argv I. And that should allow us to print all of our normal arguments. So if we compile this and run it, we can see we've got some normal args with not a flag and this random string over here. And so now we can have a very nice way of parsing all of our arguments. And you can notice that it's actually even nicer than, actually, 3 getopt. It's actually even nicer than the example that they have over here, because if you notice, they have this, you have to, in order to use getopt, you have to create this opt integer here. And you have to have a while loop. You have to use enclose things in parentheses, check for the -1, switch on opt, and then there's these other flags and things that you have to use. It's actually kind of a mess a little bit. I mean, it's possible to use it, but then there's also all of these things of passing argc and argv here, and also this special string. And if you mess up that string, you mess up your parsing. So instead of having to do all of that and create all of these flags, just arg begin, arg end. So that is a nice way to do things. So this, I just wanted to have kind of inspiration that, hey, you can just write programs to solve your own problems, even if they're just little things. You don't have to do everything that a library tells you to do. So that's about it for today. And next time we'll write a program using this, an actual program that does this. So thanks. Till next time.